Hi, I'm Steve Plage, and welcome to Voices from the Village. We're delighted to have a candidate for 2nd District Supervisor, Becky Steinbruner, with us this evening. And we're hoping Tim will join us. Tim is replacement candidate for the recall in City of Santa Cruz. That will be taking place on March 3rd, as well as we're delighted to have Becky remain with us for another few moments here, and perhaps even another half hour. So if you have questions for her, we are a live call-in show again. It's 831-425-8848, extension 630. So you can call and ask Becky about that. But we're delighted to have her remain with us.
Thank you.
And maybe we'll get twice as many votes for you as we would have with only a half an hour here. At least we're hoping, and that's the case. But
Thank you.
Becky, again, it's really a delight to have you here and let the viewers, really get to know you. I think people can probably read things online. They can see that you're for really slowing growth in Mid-County, that you had lawsuits, that you had litigated at certain times. I myself have done the same thing without success. But nevertheless,
it's all you
those
have
are always,
as a citizen.
those are always good faith efforts to try to express a point of view that somehow is not being heard anywhere else. Mm-hmm. So how was that experience for you when you actually took, and what was the issue you took to court? And give us a little background on that so people know how vigorous your advocacy can be.
Thank you. Well, again, it speaks to the poor public process.
Yeah.
And when people have something shoved down their throats and are told that they have no say, there's nothing can be done, it's done, a done deal, people don't like that. No. And so Again, it always puts the public in the reactive mode. And we are told, get a lawyer. So what happened in 2016, and I think is the lawsuit you're referring to, and what a lot of people characterize me as a NIMBY, is regarding the Aptos Village project. It is a huge project and did not have a full environmental impact report as one would expect to have had done for such a large and significant project. It had environmental review. Nobody ever really understood that process was not explained. And suddenly it was voted on a Tuesday morning at a Board of Supervisor meeting, and it was a done deal. Yeah. And that's when people found out about it. I had gone to the meetings. I had offered many suggestions that I thought would help with the traffic mitigation, and it just never got reflected, and neither did any of the other people's concerns. So many people, I actually, that's when I started going to the Board of Supervisor meetings, and what I learned then was that the county was going to streamline their permitting process, and so big projects like this would go through even faster, and maybe with even less public process. And that worried me, and I felt like people needed to know this, so I started holding meetings at the Aptos Public Library.
Is that right?
To tell people this is what they're thinking of doing, and here's what you can do, because they hadn't passed the streamlining measures yet. And the room was full. I was surprised, and I advertised for it by getting neon green poster board from the dollar store and just tacking it around. Aptos, the room was full. And nobody wanted to hear about the streamlining. They wanted to know what was going on with the Aptos Village project, and they were mad. They were very, very angry. And I never got to talk about the streamlining because all they wanted to talk about was the Aptos Village project. So that led to a series of public meetings that eventually moved to the Bayview Hotel, because I was paying $50 out of my own pocket every time at the library. And what I learned was that people were very angry. And then when the Board of Supervisors approved the final map for the first phase of the development, people came to that meeting. I let people know. I put up signs. I put out flyers. I tried to help them understand what was going on. And I had already appealed some of the major design changes in the project in 2015. I paid myself the $700 at that time.
Really?
It's $1,800 now. I paid that myself to take it before the board because that was the only opportunity the public had. So I acted as my own attorney, as my own representative for that. But when they passed the phase 1 map of it, there were many people there and they were so upset they started yelling. And it was heartbreaking to me to see a community have their voices ignored and their village, in essence, taken away from them. So the final map had problems. There were legal problems with that map. And that's when a consortium of us who had been coming to the Bayview Hotel meetings pooled our resources and we hired a local attorney. And that was what we were told was all we could do. That's all we could do was, and we didn't ask for money. It was a petition for writ of mandate. In essence, just asking the county to follow the law. And so it did go to court. Judge Burdick, who handled it, in the court sided with us. He agreed with us, and he tried to get, in the interim, he heard it once, and then he needed a week, and then he heard it again. And in that interim, he asked the county council and the developers council to try to come to an agreement where they would entwine each other and that they would follow the law in the future. They did not agree. So it came to the court the second time. He agreed with us. We thought in the audience, we've won. He's agreeing with us. And then he pulled out a piece of paper and he denied every single one of our points. Now, it was a real heartbreaker, but we learned a lot. And I have since learned that our attorney has a place where he lives in the Aptos Village project.
Well, it's interesting, my experience with all that, because there was a tremendous publicity surrounding this mammoth development in Aptos. And you seem to kind of be a voice in the wilderness. At a certain point, they was trying to raise awareness, raise the level of public debate about this.
Debate
start to
and
talk about it.
Letters. You know, I encouraged people to write letters. I encouraged them to demand there be public hearings. Not even a public hearing, but just a town hall meeting. And I have asked Supervisor Friend many times, can't we just have a community meeting and check in with the people and see, how is it going? There are always things you can tweak before phase 2 gets approved. But they didn't. He would not even respond to my emails. He would not respond to anyone. And there is the flawed public process flagrantly before you. And so the people have no voice. And recently, on January 14th, when the Board of Supervisors approved the phase 2 final map of the Aptos Village project, it was on the consent agenda. Buried in the consent agenda. And a couple people got up and spoke about it. The board, not even Supervisor Friend, even acknowledged anything brought up, did not acknowledge the item was even on the agenda.
And those who aren't familiar, as perhaps you and I might be, with public process, and particularly governmental process, oftentimes it would be a very important issue, a very contentious issue that is buried on consent. And consent, they go through, and unless there's some objection or one consent item can be pulled, they'll just vote on all those items at once. So there's no individual debate about something you might object to in any one of the items that's on the consent agenda as a whole. Correct.
And the public really has no ability any longer to pull items from the consent agenda. The consent agenda is supposed to be housekeeping matters, nothing controversial, nothing big dollar, just housekeeping stuff. And here's the Aptos Village project, phase 2. But the public at County Board of Supervisor meetings is no longer allowed to pull items from the consent.
Is that a recent change of procedure?
Yes, and that was put through by Carlos Palacio, the CAO, in response to people doing that, pulling things off.
I know that was a fairly regular process by which people come in and say, I want us to be able to talk about this. I want to pull item 5, item 6, item 5, item 4.
Absolutely, and they would do so. Oftentimes they would put it at the very end of the agenda, so you'd have to wait all day.
Well,
that was one thing they do.
I do admire people because I've been to a fair number of board of supervisor meetings, and I am always in awe of the staying power and determination that people have to sit through the ponderous length of some of those meetings just to get to something of substance that you're waiting to really talk about.
Yes. And the other thing that has happened is with Supervisor Coonerty as the chairman, he reduced public comment to 2 minutes. And that is for pretty much everything on the agenda.
Wow.
You are allowed to comment on the individual regular agenda items after they occur, but otherwise, even the closed session, that's your opportunity to comment if you have anything about the closed session, the legal matters. And it was interesting, many people opposed this policy change when the board did it, and I filed a Public Records Act request to get information about how that came about. And it was a very interesting document that I got. It was a comment on the process change proposed by Carlos Palacio to no longer allow members of the public to pull consent agenda items, and we must instead ask our supervisors to do so. And the comment from the staff member of Supervisor Coonerty's office said, "This will not look good. It is obvious that you are trying to quiet two women who do this, Becky Steinbruner and Marilyn Garrett. It will not, the optics will not be good." And so
never do any show mentioning the board of supervisors without mentioning Marilyn Garrett prominently.
I appreciate people like that,
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
Bless their hearts.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And
talk about determination. You know, she is
exactly.
Really,
Exactly. A lot of people, you know, just turn her off, but she brings good information.
But there was no justification in the supporting documentation saying we're doing this because, you know, or
no, they wanted they were getting tired of the public pulling consent agenda items and disrupting their schedule. And so they reduced the amount of time, overall time, to 30 minutes for public comment, and Supervisor Coonerty reduced each member of the public's time to 2 minutes. That, I am happy to say, has gone back to 3 minutes now that Supervisor Caput is the chairman of the board.
It's interesting that really parallels what has happened with our city council, where that's been reduced to 2 minutes, and if there are too many people, it's 90 seconds, but it's 30 minutes overall. And there are some issues that come before both city councils and particularly board of supervisors, which has such a broad impact, the entire county, that really demand, you know, that there be, you know, public comment sufficient so everybody can have their say about it.
Exactly. And why is it acceptable to reduce the amount or restrict the amount of public comment when people take time out of their day on a Tuesday morning to come and speak and have valid concerns, and this is their only podium? We should not be reducing that amount or diminishing it.
I've seen it to be a basic mistrust of the people who are speaking, say, well, we can't trust them to be brief. We can't trust them to get to the point. We can't trust them to stay on topic. You know, they're going to be here, standing here for half an hour themselves speaking, so we're going to limit this, you know. And in a democracy, I think you really have to kind of trust the people who are its voice to be able to have the opportunity to articulate that, and to know that they will do so in a manner that's respectful to everybody.
Yes. Yes, I agree with you. People are rational. They want to be heard.
That's right.
They want to feel like people are paying attention to them. They want to feel like what they say matters. And they want some answers to the questions. People come, they ask questions. Now, the Brown Act allows the supervisors...
I think we might have... No call?
Just announce.
Oh, okay. Pardon me.
That's all right.
One more time, we're going to say, if you have a question for Becky Steinbruner, please call in, 831-425-8848, extension 630. It's up there on your screen. She'd be delighted to answer. So you're saying, you know, the voice of the people, an opportunity to be able to speak about the issues that concern their lives.
Yes, and to get some answer or
right.
acknowledgement when they
Exactly,
come.
your point. Yeah.
And the Brown Act allows for this. The Brown Act encourages public participation at government meetings. There are three things that the body can do. They can have a brief discussion to maybe clarify something with the member of the public. They can ask staff to meet with the person and get some resolution, or they can say, we're going to put this item on a future agenda and discuss it publicly. Because you cannot publicly discuss something in length without it being on the advertised agenda.
Right, exactly.
That is the Brown Act.
Right.
So they have those options. They don't even respond. They never call staff up, even to an item that is on the agenda and could be discussed. They never bring staff up, and they're all sitting there in the audience, checking their phones and doing whatever they do. But they could call them up. Never. There is no public discussion.
Well, this is the kind of thing, I think, in terms of process, in terms of public process, that really needs to be changed. I think that people have a feeling that their elected representatives are not responsive. They're not listening. They're not at least hearing what they have to say in some way that's meaningful.
Right. I think what you said is that there is the attitude of certainly the Board of Supervisors that the public is to be there and tolerated, not to be met with any respectful consideration, not to really regard them in a way that they are partners in problem solving. And that needs to change, and that is what I really want to do. I would hold regular town hall meetings. Every month there would be a town hall meeting, something we would be discussing. I would also hold, and they would be in the evenings and on weekends, so working people could attend. I would hold regular constituent meetings during weekends and evening hours when people who work could come. Constituents are busy. A lot of them are driving over 17. They can't take a morning off on a Tuesday and come and have their 2 minutes and stand there and hope they're going to get some respect and be essentially brushed aside. They don't come back, and that's what happens.
No, that's
they don't come back.
Yeah,
and that has to change. I would also put out a monthly newsletter, such as what Supervisor Leopold does. That's excellent. And that's not happening in the 2nd District. So I will change that.
Well, and I'm hoping that you will, and I'm confident that you will. It seems that every election cycle, most candidates will say, I'm going to be in your neighborhoods hosting roundtables and constituent meetings and workshops on a regular basis. I'll be seeing you. And then time passes and you haven't seen them at all, and not even walking around your neighborhoods. So it disconnects you from the process completely. And they disconnect the process from the public process, and then they find a way to disconnect you from the everyday, life process. One of the things you had, and this is interesting, Becky, I'm glad you brought these talking points. It's wonderful. People can, I'm sure, pick this up by emailing you, can they? And there's a way to contact you? Please let people know.
Thank you. Yeah. I have a direct email. You can write me and I'll reply right away. And that is vote 4 Becky Steinbruner @gmail.com. Wonderful. I have a website that will be up by tomorrow. I've had a little bit of difficulty with that, but that will be Becky 4 countysupervisor.com.
Wonderful. And we have that up on the screen as a runner, so that's great. But one of the things you were talking about and we wanted to get to was support UCSC and Cabrillo College build affordable on-site housing for staff and students.
Yes. We have a affordable housing shortage.
Yes, we do.
And part of that is driven by the pressure, not only of the wealth across over the mountain by the tech giants, but also just the pressure of all of these students from UCSC that come, and housing costs at UCSC are expensive. Yes. So it is much cheaper to pay $500 a month for someone's couch, and there we are, and that's not acceptable. So I like to think that we can really work as partners with UCSC and to make sure that they are going to house 100% of their increasing enrollment. And they have to increase their enrollment because the state is mandating that they do so. And the Board of Supervisors was told this by Senator Monning and Assemblyman Stone because one of the board members said, we're going to fight this. And in fact, that's what they're doing. They just hired somebody for $120,000 a year, a new position to fight it. And a lawsuit, I'm sure.
Well,
but you know, what is that going to solve? Let's instead work with UCSC. And just as the city of Davis and the county of Yolo did, they were in the same loggerheads as we are now. And they sat down, they let, and I know this because I called up the mayor of Davis and said, how did you do that? And we talked for quite a while. But they had a new chancellor. We do too. It was an opportunity to start with maybe a bit of a fresh start. We have that too. And they let the university choose the mediator to instill some trust. And they got together, and he said it was really tense because they were ready to sue again. The city and the county were ready to sue again because the university was not going to house their increasing enrollment. That's the story we're hearing here too. So they sat with the mediator in some pretty tense times. But what they came out was they were able to finally see the problem is the housing. The problem is the infrastructure.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more.
So what they did was they got UC Davis to agree to house on site 100% of their incoming increased enrollment and a certain percentage of their existing, and it be affordable so that the students would be able to afford to live on campus. And they gave the city $2.3 million for infrastructure. Why can't we do that?
And that's something people don't really understand. I mean, our long-range development plan for UCSC calls for 29,000 students in 10 years or so. But there's no requirement that students live beyond the 68% that they require live on campus. Everybody else can try to find places of their own. But what people don't realize, as you were talking about, is that the wear and tear on the infrastructure with all of those additional people, and that's something that has to be considered as well.
Absolutely.
It's not simply just, we're non-competitive for housing. We don't have enough housing. We don't have enough rental stock. It wears our roads down. They did a study at just Bay Avenue up and down between Mission and the university, and they were at one point to go 25,000 car trips a day. And I think it's reduced now to about 15,000. But that kind of wear and tear on our infrastructure that you are so concerned about is something that you really need to consider. I am really loath to do anything to prevent people from getting a quality education from our university system. I'd like to find a way to be able to let people do that without it detrimentally impacting our community. Perhaps that's something that you as supervisor can really focus on.
Right. And the same for Cabrillo College too. There are students living in their cars. There are students camping out behind the woods at Cabrillo College too. And that's not healthy for the students. That's not healthy for our community or the environment. So I have gone to some of the long-range development plans for UCSC, and I've seen, their plan that would address this issue. I think where the rub is with the community is the location of it, the meadow. Nobody wants to see that meadow go, and I really question if that is the best place to put a development of that scale when the mantra for everybody else is up and dense.
Up and dense,
Up and dense. And that concentrates, the impact on the
And all housing development now is getting density bonuses. That's another one of the things that people are talking about.
And Cabrillo College should be building on-site housing too.
Do they have the physical area to be able to build something out there?
Yes, they do. I actually sat with the president, Matt Weinstein, Wetstein, I'm sorry.
Who I met here at a show not long ago,
Very nice man. And he wants to do that. And actually, he's looking at putting it off, building some housing between the parking structure on the, I guess it would be the west side of the campus, and the Porter Gulch area.
Okay.
So he thinks, and that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
The issue I was talking with him about was Measure R, and why doesn't it include anything about housing, on-site housing? Foothill College has a bond proposal on as a measure, and it includes on-site housing.
Interesting.
There are other community colleges, like Feather River Community Colleges, that are known for their on-site.
I don't always subscribe to importing other models to our location because we're so unique in so many ways, but some do work. And it's not, you can't reject out of hand all of them.
Right.
Becky, we have about a minute. This half hour has flown by.
Indeed. Thank you. You're
maybe
wonderful.
We'll do another. Can we get on for another half an hour?
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
We have about a minute, so you want to sum up again and make sure that people can use your website and your Gmail, and can cast a vote for you at March 30th.
Thank you very much. I encourage you, the viewing audience, to call me. My phone number is available on the website. You can email me. You can look at the website and find out where my next constituent meetings are going to be. I'm going to be at the Cabrillo Farmers Market this coming Saturday. I want to talk with people. I want to be with the people. I don't put myself up above the citizens at all. I'm one of the citizens, and I want to be your leader, working shoulder to shoulder with you as a public servant to come to some good solutions that are effective and efficient and that we can all afford. I'm concerned about infrastructure in this county, and I want to work with you to make things better than they have been in the past.
Well, thank you, Becky. I know that the residents of District 2 in our county will be served well and wisely by you, should they decide to cast a vote for you on March 3rd. Thank you again for being here. Thank you for your great work in the community. Thank you for really making the sacrifice, to commit yourself to public service. It's not something that everybody can do easily, nor can they do it well, as you seem to be doing. So
thank you very so much.
And thanks again, everybody. There we are. For tuning into this edition of Voice from the Village. Next month, tune us in again. We're going to have a special show on the city's recall effort. That'll be 2 days actually before the election. We will have some candidates. We'll have some folks pro and con on the recall. So please come back and see us then. That would be on March 1st, I believe. It's the first Sunday of March. So until then, we'll see you later.